Thanks, Rita. And I just threw in the chat too. I want to give folks minutes to come on, but why don't you tell us where you're from this morning, and then in the chat, throw in a question or feel free to unmute and ask a question. And while people are thinking about that, I wanted to grab one thing. Rita, can you tell us a little bit about, one of the things, elected positions are important, but what about appointed? What about LCMR? Can you tell us a little bit about LCMR?
Yeah, thanks for that. So LCCMR is Legislative Citizen Commission on Minnesota Resources, and that is the organization that makes recommendation to the legislature to spend the environmental trust fund. And that environmental trust fund comes from the lottery dollars. So that's the Minnesota loan, the lottery dollars. They're about $70 million annually, give or take, that this Legislative and Citizen Commission, we take RFPs, we review them and rank them, and then we make a recommendation to the legislature for how the money should be spent. The LCCMR is made up of citizens, 6 citizen members, and legislators, state House and Senate folks. And I was appointed by Governor Walz to the LCCMR in 2020. And it's an interesting organization, quite political, having House and Senate members on there. Often we have difficulty coming to agreement on which projects should be ranked at the top. We usually can fund about 60 projects, and we get applications for over 200 usually. So there's a filtering process, and not everyone agrees on what that is. My sense is that we need to stay true to the statute, which says to preserve, enhance, expand. I can't exactly remember, but that's a fun and interesting group. And that appointment came because I applied. So there's a really good point, Teresa, and that is, if you're looking to be appointed to something that's near and dear to your heart, having been a DNR folk, natural resources was important to me, so I wanted to be on that commission. I applied through the Secretary of State's office, and you can look on there and find what open appointments are available and just apply to 6 or 8 of them, and try and get a good word into the governor, because he generally makes most of the appointments. And you might sit on the barber and hairdressers board or something, or the mental health board, or the school safety, or there's a lot of different kinds of things depending on your interests that you might do. I also, in the past, I was appointed by Governor Dayton for 2 terms. I served 8 years on the Greater Minnesota Regional Parks and Trails Commission, and that is the organization, that we have the 7/8% is it for the sales tax money that goes to art, history, culture, the legacy dollars, I guess we call it, and it goes to outdoor heritage, and it goes to art and legacy, but also some of it goes to parks. So the DNR gets a portion of parks, the Metro Parks gets a portion, and Greater Minnesota gets a portion. And so that was also an application process, and we gave out money for that. And I'm proud to say that Big Falls was one of the communities that received funding from Greater Minnesota Regional Parks and Trails for their park down at the river when I was sitting on that commission. And that was a fun commission too, but it is not easy to give out money. You think that asking for money as a grant request is hard. It's almost even harder to decide who to get the money. But those are fun things to do. Thanks for that question.
I have a bunch of questions, but does anybody else want to unmute, ask a question? Feel free.
I have a question.
Alexa.
Yeah, so I wanted to go back to your piece about having a life coach. And I just wanted to ask a bit more about that, because of course I've seen life coaches online, and but I've never actually met anyone who's used one. And I was just wondering what kind of areas maybe they focus on, or if you think it would, do you wish that maybe you would have invested in one earlier in your career, or do you feel I don't know, I guess just because I'm kind of at the beginning stages of my career and my adult life, because I'm 22. Just curious about your thoughts on that.
That's a good question. I'm not sure I would have been ready for it at your age. because I was still trying to, kind of figure things out. But I think it might have been helpful for me midlife. I went back to school at BSU when I was like 45, I think. So that was kind of midlife for me. And it may have helped me to have a life coach at that time, but I was pretty determined to do what I wanted to do. Although I thought I wanted to be a teacher, and it turned out I was much better at being a community planner. So a life coach might have helped there. But I do think that if you are at a point when you can't get yourself organized to figure out what should I do first? What are my life goals? What are my big, hairy, audacious goals that I want to achieve? Where do I want to be in a year from now? That's the kind of things that I think a life coach can help you figure out. Or if you're stuck, I can't get motivated to go back to school, or I can't figure out, how to excel at my job. I think those are the things that a life coach can probably help you with. So I wouldn't say every person is different. If you think that you might need to help answering some of those big questions in your life, it would be probably helpful even to have a single session with a life coach. My life coach offered a free session to start, just to help me understand what a life coach could be, and to see if it was something that I wanted to do. And I think that's probably true for a lot of life coaches. They might offer that. So that might be an option for you.